Today, I'm so used to saying that. Welcome to TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex with really kinky people. And we're doing a special show tonight. It's a 2-hour show where our shows are only now an hour long. We've decided to cut it down a little bit. And but I could not miss the guests that we're having. But a little bit of announcements, and I will introduce my guest and my co-host in a few moments. Yes, basically, we're going to be closing TSR Network down for a month. That's it, a month. We're not closing it down completely. The rumors are going, ooh, are you closing TSR Network down? No, a month. My daughter's getting married on October 18th, and there's so much to do for the wedding. And so I wasn't doing a show. I took a few weeks more off of doing the shows, but I could not miss this opportunity to have Jay Wiseman in, because he's a great interview to have. He's very, very educated in BDSM, not only in the medical field, but also in the legal field. But also he has a great sense of humor, and I'm not going to be doing this underneath the table to him. I promise you guys. I know that's why you all want to watch it.
We had to talk about that.
Yes,
I
mean,
but you may be doing this.
So,
the days when it's good to be me.
I think we should get on with the show. So we'll be back when we come back. We'll be back in the first week of November. I'm already started booking. I've got some awesome people booked already for November, and so does Cassie. So we're just decided that we'd be little co-hosts today, and he's like the meat between the sandwich. Oh, two blondes. Oh, I'm not blonde anymore. So I want to introduce. I want to introduce my co-host. Miss Cassie from Naughty and Nice with Miss Cassie on TSR Network.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. This is the first time I've actually hosted with you when we've been sitting side by side. I mean, we're used to the banter.
Well, I'm the strange voice in the background.
Yes.
And I'm like, what's his name? Who does that? Who did the talk show? Creepy guy with long hair. Help me, somebody.
Creepy guy, long hair.
On Cyrus Radio now. What's his name? Creepy guy, long hair, tall guy, skinny guy.
Howard Stern.
Howard Stern.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, you're the Howard Stern, and I'm the girl in the background going, yes, Howard. Yeah, that was it. But I only put my 2 cents in when I get really, really passionate about something, and I go, ooh, 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 and she sees me going, oh, 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 oh. So we're excited about this. Listen, if you are watching the show and you are not into the chat room, please come in the chat room. Go to TSR Network. You might be watching this on FetLife. You might be watching this on Google Hangout. You might be watching this on YouTube. So if you're on any of those sites, please go over to TSR Network, click on the chat room, and come on in. And Cassie, I didn't mean to cut you off. We were just joking.
Oh, no worries.
So,
anybody in that chat room now?
So a couple people are starting to come in. Guest 776 says, okay, great. Thank you. So welcome. The show is starting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's going to start. I have my little iPad, hides my boobs. Yeah.
Oh, don't hide the boobs.
No. I have spit on my
Women equal conspiracy.
He wanted to be in the center of all this. So let's introduce. You want to introduce our wonderful guest?
Absolutely, everybody. This is the famous Jay Wiseman.
Woohoo, everybody here!
You are most famous in my rope class, as we talk about you every class. Are your ears burning?
A little bit.
Do you need a Q-tip?
Well, the number one question I get is, where do you get those good safety scissors? And, you know, we talk about kinkymedical.com, or actually going to a place that sells real first aid supplies, or like I used to get them from the places that sold police uniforms and firemen uniforms and, you know, nurses uniforms.
Well, they're pretty widely available. I get most of mine from an EMS supply company just outside of Sacramento called
Sacramento Medical Supply.
Well, there's a company called Galls, which has big. They do police, fire, and EMS stuff. Oh, Life Assist. That's right, Life Assist, which is outside of Sacramento. There's a big company in Southern California called Dynamed.
Okay.
And they're widely available online. I specifically like the scissors made by American Diagnostic Corporation. And on the handle, they'll have a little ADC on them. And I like them specifically in the bright colored. They come in 10 colors, but I only sell the white, neon yellow, and neon pink. Makes them easier to find in a low light situation.
Yes, I have a white pair and a bright yellow one. In fact, I think I got one of those from you.
Quite possibly.
Yes, I do tell people they should attend your classes for the safety scissors, if nothing else.
So I guess he doesn't give flowers, he gives scissors. Guess who's in the chat room?
Who's in the chat room?
Lou Rubin.
Oh,
Hi,
Lou. We like Lou.
Love Lou Rubin.
Yeah, he's good people.
Oh, he participated in our Christmas, when we were at the studio, our Christmas 3-hour rope show. She experienced some pretty orgasmic things.
Yeah, that was a wild show.
And he was on webcam through the whole show, giving us play-by-play interpretation. Like he was like he was the sportscaster of rope. So they go good. Oh, Entropy, welcome Entropy. Entropy is in the chat room. Welcome. So people are starting to stroll into it, and then we have Hi Kids is back in the chat room. Welcome. So you guys, please send this out to all of your friends that we are doing this live show for 2 hours tonight. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things, lots of things.
Yes.
So, Jay, when was the last time you've been laid?
Yeah, that's a good question. When was the last time?
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Oh, God, I got to get my head.
Oh, my goodness.
I got to get laid. I got to get my head out of the gutter. No. We're not doing a sex marathon in the middle of my show, our show.
Oh, we can't. They wouldn't let us keep.
Oh, that's right. We can't do nudity.
Yes, we must keep our panties on.
Yeah, and you got to keep your boobs
covered.
Yeah.
Yes, Jay, you do need to wear pasties.
But you told me.
You're going to see some crazy humorous things in this next 2 hours. You're going to wonder what comes out of these people's mouth is amazing. But I'm really excited about having Jay here because it's been a while since he's been on my show. He was on the town hall, the very first town hall meeting, which was a live aired event. But I invited too many people into the chat room, and he couldn't get in. And the only reason everybody came to watch it was because Jay Wiseman was going to be in it.
I remember that now.
I know, it's so embarrassing. And I've been trying to finagle him to do his own show on TSR Network. We can do it via webcam.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it, and we've talked about it. He has to have really fast internet, and I'd have to give him a really good quality webcam, so it's high definition. But
we can talk some more about that.
And he doesn't even have to leave the house to do it, which is great.
Yes.
But, yeah, we'll probably talk about it the first of the year, add some more shows onto it. We want to get back up to like 7 or 8 shows a week, or 9 shows or whatever. We want to get back up there and start to raise some funding to really actually get a huge studio. But it will all happen. So, Jay, what's been going on with you? What have you been up to, and what have you been teaching? Where have you been? And this is going to take an hour or so. We're going to just sit here and listen.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the good news, bad news, I'm doing more expert witness work. I did 3 questionable consent cases last year. And I'm currently been retained as an expert in a homicide in San Francisco. Somebody ended up in bondage and dead, and they're trying to make sense out of it. And it looks like I'm going to be retained in another questionable consent case in the Bay Area.
Wow.
And of course, I'm always working on my writing. I've reached agreement in principle with my publisher to do a book about BDSM and polyamory. How that's different from vanilla polyamory.
Wow.
Yeah, there is a few differences.
Just a few.
Just a few, yeah.
Like spankings and rope
And I'm down here in Los
Thanks.
Angeles now on a 16-day tour.
You are. That's why I'm so glad we were able to get you in, because when you notified me and said, "Yeah, I want to," because we've been trying to get him for a long time, trying to get our, every time he comes down here. You haven't been down here, in a while.
At least a year, I think.
Yeah, and so we haven't been.
That long?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think it was July of last year.
Yeah, I was at the pleasure test. You did the rope, the class.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been working, trying to get him on, and when he notified me that he was going to be down here, I was so disappointed because I wasn't doing my show, getting ready for the wedding. So this is a special event just for Jay Wiseman. So
Don't you feel special?
I just hope she feels happy about it after it's over.
Ah.
I've seen you with a whip in your hand. It's not a view I want to have up close anytime soon.
but I'm accurate.
Isn't that what's important?
To be
That
accurate?
counts.
Accurate, and I know how to not cut the skin unless I want to. I know how. I know.
I'm sure that's true.
I just saw one of the TV shows called Outlander. I was at my daughter's house because I don't have real TV. I only got Netflix and Amazon. And this new series, and this man was getting 100 lashes, and then got another 100 lashes on it. I mean, blood was gushing out. I mean, the skin.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there, I'm looking, and I says, God, I've done more than 300 or 400 in a night. I never produced that much blood. Something wrong with this picture. So, I mean, for the people that, everyone knows Jay, but for the people that don't know Jay, give them a little synopsis of where you started and what the different, like the medical field that you were in and the legal aspect of everything that you're in. So people have a good grip and grasp on who they're talking to.
Okay, well, I started having S&M fantasies in 1970, and you might not believe it to look at me, but I'm a former Haight-Ashbury hippie. And it was kind of worrisome. Peace, love, and bondage was not the mantra of the era.
No, it was not.
And I went to a library at a college, went to the psychology section, found some books on S&M there. And there was one that was full of crime scene photographs of sex torture victims and stuff like that.
Oh, good Lord.
Women with a triple-digit number of stab wounds in their bodies and stuff.
Wow.
Going, oh my God, is this what I'm turning into? And it was pretty worrisome. And one of the big changes between then and now is this used to be a lot more taboo than it used to be. And so I really wasn't. I was very worried. I mean, what am I turning into? What's going on? Where is this going to lead? And I think it was the November 1973 issue of Playboy magazine. There was a letter to the editor. Dear Playboy, my boyfriend, I can't compete with boobs.
No, Playboy.
My boyfriend wants me to tie him up. What should I do about this? And I figured it would say something like, get rid of him fast. They said, well, you use ropes that are about this long. And they actually gave a little how-to. And that was just tremendously comforting to read. And then they made reference to this book, The Joy of Sex, which actually had an entire chapter on bondage in it.
Yeah, I was still, I lost my virginity around that time, and The Joy of Sex really helped me a lot. Did you read it?
No, but I've seen it given away at many bridal showers.
Very good book.
Yeah, I usually give somebody a copy of the Kama Sutra. Other people get The Joy of Sex. It's all in good fun.
Now they get 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the nice thing about 50 Shades of Grey is that because of that book and because of the upcoming movie, the sales of the nonfiction BDSM books, the how-tos, are up across the board.
Wow. So you're gonna pay me back the money you owe me? No.
Just tell me how much.
0.
But I attended my first S&M event in 1975, and again, I sat across the street for about 45 minutes trying to work up my nerve to go in there. And I've been in the community pretty much ever since then. I went to my first Society of Janus event in either 1977 or 1978. I believe I have the longest continuous Janus membership of any member in its history. And in fact, in October, I'm one of 15 people they're inducting into their Member Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
That is something.
Wow. I remember Guy Baldwin talking about him going to a Janus meeting. He was the only gay guy that ever walked through through the doors, and how he was so welcomed, and he was so worried that he wouldn't be welcome. And he talks about his experience with it.
That must have been in like the mid-'80s or something. When I first joined Janus, it was about 85% gay men and about 12% leather dykes, and literally a light sprinkling of people who weren't one of those two things. And,
Well, do you think
but
that
not-
had been regional?
Yeah, I think it was here in Los Angeles that he went to, because he was involved with Janus here in Los Angeles.
there was an LA
then
Janus
Toronto.
for a while in
Yeah.
the mid-'80s. It split off and became Threshold.
Yeah.
That was kind of nasty, actually. There are people who don't speak to each other to this day behind that.
Grow up.
Yeah.
Really?
I had good friends on both sides of that, so that was very painful. But yeah, I ran ambulance calls for about 8 years, from about 1973 to 1981.
I mean, I don't think that I could work in ambulance because of the fact that the stress it's a human life that you're dealing with, and that stress and that tension you have to do the correct thing at that moment.
But as a dom, you are also playing with somebody's life and having to do the right thing at the right moment.
Oh, I think I'm going to become submissive now.
Well, I used to call myself a karmic janitor, because like 20 minutes after somebody's karma caught up with them, they were looking up at me.
Oh,
They tried to drive home while drunk one time too many. They decided they could skip their high blood pressure medication that day, or, similar decisions. And sure enough, and actually one of the things that's true is that, I have some tape recordings I made during my first couple of months, and one of them is a very young me saying, hey, you know something? Drunk drivers really do cause a lot of auto accidents. It wasn't something they made up in driver's head just to scare us. It's really true. I will bet you that 80% of the accidents I went to involved alcohol, and probably about 2/3 of the assaults that I went to involved alcohol.
I believe that.
wow.
Alcohol's a great
I
instigator.
don't. And what is weed going to do? What is marijuana and weed going to do to those numbers? I mean, because if I smoked a joint, I would go.
Yeah, most people are asleep before they ever.
I mean, but I know a lot of people that smoke and drive.
That's true.
And
those same people are probably also drinking and driving.
I don't know. So, do you have any tapes of you from a while, from years ago, with you saying things?
Saying things about what?
Audio tapes, or anything like what he just said about, making comments.
Oh, when I was very young? Nothing that would have survived.
Yeah, my tapes are more like, oh yeah, I'm just kidding. Yes, you've got a beautiful cock. God, I'm so embarrassed.
Oh, my
But I wrote my first book in 1989. It was a small book on meeting people through personal ads.
Remember personal ads?
Oh, God. We're going to get on the conversation of dating again, please, you guys.
And then the first edition of SM 101 came out in 1992.
It's an awesome book, by the way.
Thank you.
It's an awesome book.
Yes, some of my students say that they have that book, and that was the Bondage 101 as well.
The Erotic Bondage Handbook.
Yes, that one. Yes, they do like that one.
Yeah, 101 is sold in the 6 figures. It's internationally distributed. We're on the 2nd edition now. My publisher is after me to do a 3rd edition of SM 101, so probably after we do the BDSM and Poly book, we'll do the 3rd edition of 101. I mean, the basics haven't changed, but there's a
Yeah.
few new things. So
I'm not ignoring my guest, everybody, because I'm monitoring the chat room. So
Yes.
I don't want to be rude, but if there is any questions, we don't want to miss them or any comments.
So are there?
Yeah, there was a comment from Entropy. Remember we were talking about the flogging, getting cuts on it and everything. He says the intent was different with that whipping. We're not trying to lie open flesh, but we could. Thank you. Or maybe that should be a new class. How to really break the skin. Okay. And it's kind of not moving around. I know they're talking, and my thing doesn't show all the people that are in here. For some reason, it just doesn't register because it's an Apple. So, yeah, never mind.
Oops.
I guess they're not going to sponsor us. So, I remember you talking about a case when I interviewed you before. A case of a young man that did some breath play with, his submissive or his girlfriend or whatever, and then he went and hung himself off of.
Yeah, the Philadelphia case, I think that was. Yeah.
I thought it was in San Francisco. I didn't know it was in Philadelphia. That conversation that we had has always bothered me. There's differences of how people feel about breath play. There's lots of differences. And people argue on
Some
the
of them are even informed.
that have the different. I know. I mean, so what's your opinion of breath play?
Good question.
I already know it.
I'll bet you don't.
Oh, I think you have it. Yeah. Okay, I've been following some of the postings.
About 95% of people who quote my position on breath play get it wrong, actually.
Okay, let me see if I can do it.
All right.
You don't do breath play because you don't know the state of the person's heart. And you could kill somebody and then end up in jail. Okay, that's what I got from it.
Okay, well, you did better than a lot of people.
Yeah, but I'm real simple. I didn't drive the yellow bus when I was a kid, but I'm real simple. Things have to be simple with me.
Okay. Well, as I was telling you before the show, we just earlier this month had a conviction in a breath play homicide in San Francisco.
Wow.
I posted about it in my FetLife group, among other places.
Were you attacked because did people say you shouldn't have been voicing your opinion of it, like I've seen them do to you? I mean,
surprisingly little flack this time
Wow.
around. And well, this was in many ways, so to speak, a good case because most of these breath play homicides are settled quietly by plea bargain. So there's very often, at the time that the body gets discovered, at the time of the arrest, there's a highly sensationalized media report, usually with significant errors and omissions in it. And then the case settles quietly by plea bargain, so it doesn't show up in any legal database. You can't search for it.
yeah.
And these are not mandated reporting deaths, so they're not in any public health database. Like, if I want to find out how many people drowned in this country in 2007, I can probably find that out within about 10 minutes on Google.
I can tell you how many people have choked to death in this country. I think it's 2,700 people choked to death.
Well, it's usually about 6,000 a year, actually.
Oh, I was almost one of them. I almost died. Oh, well, it's not about me.
Wait a minute, I think I read about that
Yeah.
on your profile.
It was like-
that was a scary incident.
It was
But anyway,
life-changing.
to
Let's
get back
talk
to
about
this particular case.
Let's talk about this.
Yes. Back to the
This case was actually because I was actually able to find the URLs for the initial discovery of the body, and then for the arrest of the suspect, and then for the arraignment of the suspect, and then the trial and the suspect's testimony, and then the verdict and sentencing. And so it's a remarkably completely documented case. It was two gay guys having sex in a park, and one of them, at the request of the other, choked him, and the guy died while being choked.
Wow. You've done breath play.
Yes.
So, Cassie, what is your experience of breath play? I mean, what does it do for you? I mean, it's really good for us to have different points of view and to talk this over because, we don't have sometimes the ability to have people from different sides of the fence talk about breath play. So what did breath play do for you?
I've had interesting experiences since I was a teenager. as kids, we used to just do it as an a accompaniment to getting high, because we'd hyperventilate with some marijuana and then we'd choke each other out, and it brings you on a trip you wouldn't believe. That was my first exposure to that breath play. I was like 15.
God, where'd you hang out?
Now she's referring to something nowadays is called the choking game, and it's been around since the 1800s.
Wow.
And usually someone, the age group is about age 10 to about age 14 or 15. It's a game that kids have been playing when the grown-ups weren't around.
Mm-hmm.
I played it for a while myself when I was, I think, 12.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest. We didn't do those things. We just played out in the woods.
Yeah, if you Google the phrase "the choking game," you'll come up with a whole bunch of material on it.
I think. This is really information I did not know. This is fascinating.
And that's a separate thing from autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yes.
But anyway, to answer the question you asked me, I think it's riskier than many people believe it to be. I can understand the appeal. Very often, one of the first symptoms of being low on oxygen is euphoria.
Yes.
But there are cases where only a few seconds of suffocation or strangulation have killed somebody. So how do you monitor a practice like that? Basically it's a Russian roulette risk model. And we know that younger, healthier people are unlikely to have a choking episode trigger a cardiac arrhythmia, and we know that older, sicker people are more likely. I just turned 65. I did things when I was 20 that I would die of cardiac failure if I tried to do them now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's always a roll of the dice on any given day. And plus now, there's been a new legislative development in it. The people who study domestic violence have figured out that an episode of abuse that involves choking or suffocation, that person is 8 times more likely to be killed by their abuser down the road. And so now 30 states, including California, have passed laws that make choking or suffocating someone you're dating, someone you're living with, someone you had a child with, etc. It's now a felony per se.
Wow.
Yeah, I was actually talking with the NCSF people at the Leather Leadership Conference a couple of years ago when the conference was here in LA. I was actually thinking about, because I am a court-qualified expert witness in breath play, and I've done a number of homicides, including 2 death penalty cases where it was at issue. And I knew we weren't going to get a statutory exemption for sadomasochistic sex choking games in that statute. But I was thinking that many laws are preceded by what's called a statement of legislative intent. And I wanted to go to Sacramento and say, you may catch people up in this net that you weren't intending to catch up here. So maybe we could get something in the statement of legislative intent that said this is specifically for non-consensual, abusive type of stuff. We thought we had several months, and it flew through the legislature. Within a couple of weeks, it was through both houses, signed by the governor, done deal. So all we can hope for now is that, prosecuting attorneys have discretion, and it's getting better legally. I was an expert witness on a fatal fisting case a few years ago.
Fatal fisting case?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ouch.
Well, fisting fatalities are actually more common than you might think.
It's just not something that people normally talk about.
Hey, are we talking fisting with men or fisting with women?
Well, in this case, the person who died was a woman. And,
Her
Anal
Virginia?
or vaginal?
both.
Both.
Yeah,
Ouch.
massive vaginal and rectal trauma. Turns out drinking large amounts of alcohol is a suboptimal substitute for using large amounts of lube. Who knew?
Oh my God! So it was alcohol induced.
Well, she had so much alcohol on board, the defense attorney actually tried to argue that she died of alcohol poisoning rather than the fisting.
Wow.
But anyway,
Now I know I don't drink.
I actually worked for the federal prosecutor's office in that case.
Wow.
And the 2 women who were prosecuting the case, they both looked like Sandra Day O'Connor's daughters. But at one point I asked them, I said, "You ladies know what a safe word is?" And they go, "Oh yeah." Oh, yeah. So when federal prosecutors in Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
get the distinction between BDSM and violence,
Yeah.
you know, it turns out that unless somebody actually goes to the police and said he did bad things to me, that the prosecutions are almost unheard of. And so that's what we're going to have to come back to in this case, is we're going to have to hope we get a prosecutor who realizes that this law wasn't written with the intention of regulating this type of behavior. And
Well,
thus,
there was a case in Orange County where it was a physical. I mean, it was an abuse case, but really wasn't abuse. She had bruises all over her, and they were in a BDSM relationship, and he did not really, hurt her intentionally, because they did a scene, and the courts ruled favored for him,
mhm.
which was a shocking. Lou Rubin in the chat room says, "Does breath play mean choking someone out by, I can't say that word,
Carotid?
yeah, carotid artery, like the MMA guys do, or a plastic bag over the head?" And then he says, "The choking game happened on my playground also."
Yeah.
Yeah, because,
Where
I
was
mean,
it?
asphyxiation is basically cutting off breath. The choking game is cutting off blood.
Well, basically, breath play is a very broad umbrella term. It basically stands for any kind of choking or suffocation done in an erotic context.
Wow. We have, I think I need glasses. We have Cal Lynn. Cal Lynn is in the chat room. Welcome. And I know that there's other people in there, but they're not showing up on my list. If you're watching the show, please come on to TSR Network and come into the chat room, because this show is going to go on for 2 hours. Tell all your friends. Twitter this out. Facebook this out. FetLife this out, because there's going to be some great information that we're talking about, not only with our humor, but also in our wonderful discussion.
Yes.
So Cassie's done breath play. I've done breath play once. Had someone do it to me when I thought I was submissive. It was in the shower, and then he stopped. But I really didn't know what he was doing. But I won't do it with submissives. I won't do it with anybody, especially because most of the people that I'm with is above the age of 45. They're older. They're not young, and I don't know the condition of their heart.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to understand that this can happen to people who have entirely healthy hearts.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard of somebody who had a heart attack and died while sitting on the toilet during a bowel movement?
Oh my God, that would be so embarrassing.
I
Oh,
actually,
you'd be dead.
I was actually out on a couple of ambulance calls for that, and it is a singularly undignified way to die.
Oh,
Well, have you ever heard of a case where there are a number of known triggers
you're gonna shock me tonight.
for
aren't you?
this
You're gonna have
mechanism?
fun.
I think in my writings, I've identified at least half a dozen triggers. For example, choking on a piece of food can trigger it.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yep.
Or have you ever heard of somebody like goes to rob a drugstore, puts a gun on the pharmacist's face, and says, give me all the opiates, and the pharmacist just dies of fright?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, a sudden exposure to severe heat or severe cold can do it. Pressure on the eyeballs can do it.
Oh, that's so.
Also, sudden severe pain can do it, particularly to the cervix in women and the testicles in men.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a case report out of Singapore where a man, I'd seen references to fatal testicular pain in the medical journals, but I got a case report of a man and a woman in Singapore got into an argument over a parking space, and she squeezed him by the testicles, and she squeezed the testicles so hard he actually went into cardiac arrest.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and there's pictures of the Singapore paramedics trying to defibrillate him, and so forth. So.
Wow. You do interesting research.
Yeah, I'm a little ray of sunshine. I really am.
Yes, you are.
It's like in one of my expert witness cases. And after she cut off her finger and threw it at him.
Lou said, perfect clarification. Jay, thanks. Thank you. We want more questions coming in, and so please,
Although it's funny because breath play is actually not the most dangerous thing we do. I mean, yes, but if you look at what activity actually kills BDSM people, breath play is a small percentage of all our fatalities. the overwhelming majority of our fatalities happen when two circumstances overlap. Circumstance one, the bottom is in highly restrictive bondage, which I define as bondage so restrictive that in the event of a fire or earthquake, they can't be outside unassisted in 1 minute or less. But that's not enough. People do highly restrictive bondage scenes every day all over the planet with perfectly good outcomes. It's when the second parameter overlaps, which is they are completely alone.
I think this is tap water. We have regular water in the refrigerator.
Oh, could we? Thank you.
And you know, there is a fly that died in my refrigerator, and I'm kind of keeping it. No, just joking. There is I just noticed it. I go, what is that fly doing?
No, that was just wrong. Okay,
I'm not
because you know
gonna fly,
he's gonna be in there for like 10 hours now. Okay, like trying to keep that fucker
no,
in there.
it's
Okay,
dead.
so.
I mean, you know.
I know he's in there now. He's like, oh my god, he's still in there. Ah!
Try CPR.
I have no filters, do I?
Part of your charm. But anyway, the second factor is they're completely alone. Nobody can hear them and they yell for help. That is the big one. I mean, yes, there's the occasional breath play death. Yes, there's the occasional gun play death. But it's bondage and I've got 4 stickies in my FetLife group of scenes with a fatal outcome. All 4 of them are bondage and alone deaths.
I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I know a guy that he had it so rigged up in his construction building and he would do self-bondage, I mean, suspension and everything else. And I kept saying, why are you doing this alone? You can't do this.
Yeah, you never, ever leave the bottom unattended. Whether you're the bottom or somebody else is the bottom, that's just not something that's okay to do alone.
When I teach my bondage classes, as you know, I talk about 3 levels of monitoring. There's close monitoring, where you're right there in the room with them. There's loose monitoring, which is how you might monitor a sleeping infant. I mean, maybe
the baby monitor.
Yeah, or you can hear them if they yell for help. And
yes.
And restrained patients in medical institutions are visually inspected every 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then there's completely unmonitored. And there are certain practices that, in my opinion, are acceptably safe only in close monitoring situations. There are certain practices that are acceptably safe in loose monitoring, but if they can't be outside unassisted in 1 minute or less, you don't want to leave them completely alone.
No.
That's the big. So for all our talk about breath play, gun play, all these other things, that's the real killer.
Well, absolutely. I mean, positional asphyxiation can happen in a hot minute, you know, hot second. You know, people, because I talk about this in my classes and everything, you know, yeah, that hog tie is all sexy and everything, but it's like, do not leave them unattended. And think about where you're placing them. Do not tie them in a corset. They cannot breathe. You know, because I've never actually had to cut rope, but I have cut corset strings.
Okay.
You know, because I had to get them breathing.
Well, the nice thing about positional asphyxia, now there's a phrase you hear, is that it
say that 12 times.
it can become acute, but usually there's a fair amount of run-up to it.
Yeah.
So the people will report that they're in respiratory distress. Right now, the things I teach that if you gag someone, that's a close monitoring scene.
Yes.
One of my fatalities in my FetLife group involves a woman who bound and gagged her ex-husband and then went to take a shower.
Oh, no.
And when she checked on him after the shower, he was dead. The gag had shifted in his mouth. And basically, my rule on close monitoring is never let them out of your sight for longer than it takes you to pee. I'm willing to have them out of my sight for like maybe 2 minutes. That's it. We had an interesting discussion in my FetLife group recently about a condition called harness hang syndrome, which is, well, they were French cave divers were starting to die on their ropes, and at first they thought they were dying of hypothermia, but that turned out not to be the case. It turns out that when a person is suspended with their legs dangling down and they don't have anything to facilitate the return of blood, the return of blood to their heart starts to become less than the body needs, and they actually start to develop cardiac arrhythmias.
Wow.
And these can actually be fatal in about 15 minutes. They actually took some patients and put them on a tilt table in a hospital, and they had them hooked up to a cardiac monitor. So they weren't using the muscle tone in their legs to keep them upright. And sure enough, they started to develop fairly dangerous arrhythmias.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so because of that, a suspension where the legs would be vertical, or you've got the bottom tied in a standing position. You've seen people get faint tied in a standing position.
Yes, and I always tell them, you know, I don't care what body harness we rig or whatever, if you're standing up there, your arms are in the cross position, it is not going to be comfortable. You're only going to be up there for, yes, ma'am? You know, for maybe 3 to 5 minutes max. Trust me, there's going to be some stressor in the body that's going to make you extremely uncomfortable, or make me uncomfortable, because I don't think you need to be up there that long.
The nice thing about harness hang syndrome is that it does take a while to become serious. So the person will become symptomatic. They'll start to sweat, they'll start to look pale, they may complain of nausea, their vision may begin to gray out. And so if they're in a monitored situation, same like positional asphyxia, there's a run-up to it. They're in distress, they know they're in distress, and you have a very, very good window of intervention provided somebody is there.
Yeah, that's what amusement parks do to me. I get sick of them. I get dizzy. I can't go. I can't do. And if I
Is it just being in an amusement park, or
no, it's just the rides. I can't do them. I get automatically
Well,
sick.
I didn't know if you had like this disorder. You step through the gates of an amusement park and, you know, immediately
people go, you want to go to Magic Mountain? I go, what for?
Ferris wheelophobia or
Yes.
something like that.
They're making fun of me, you guys. If you're in the chat room and you think that it's
Rollercoaster.
okay for them to disrespect me and treat me like this, type it in.
Bring your friends. I'm teaching a class on that next week at Threshold.
What kind of class?
My women-only class on how to masturbate men. Oh, wait till I get my hands on him.
Cute.
Okay, so what do you know that I don't know? We can't show nudity on the show because we're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, back in the
videos
mid-'80s, I dated a woman for a while who'd actually worked at a brothel in Nevada. And
No, just joking.
I almost can't even say that word anymore.
I don't care. I'm not politically correct. Never been, never will be.
But she had her fair share of errors and omissions, but oh my God, she gave an absolutely world-class hand job. And
I mean, you just don't go, ew.
No, there are hand exercises you can do with everything.
You can squeeze them and it could feel like an asshole. I mean,
well, plus there's a whole thing on male sexual anatomy, male sexual physiology, how it's different from females. We go into how Viagra works, different types of lube. And I cover about 12 different stroking techniques. And then there's some absolutely fiendish masturbation games.
Speaking of masturbation, MPB said they're making fun of near you is not the same thing at all. And then Lou said, I want Rev Mel to do the whole show ball gag.
But then we'd be deprived of the pleasures of your mouth.
Did you also talk about how
see, she's the
our
straight
sexual
person.
needs change as we get
I'm
older? I know
the
that
gag person.
From personal experience, the hand job that I give a young man is a whole lot different than I give to a man in his 60s. Different techniques, different other places need to be stimulated.
Well, I know the difference. When you're doing a young guy, he's done within 2 seconds. You're doing an older man, you're like, okay.
Groucho Marx had a saying along those lines. He said, they say old people don't have sex. That's a damn lie. Old people have sex and it's great, especially the one in the fall.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that really they don't know how to give blowjobs. They don't know how to give hand jobs. They don't know how to milk guy. To milk on milking is fun.
I've been teaching this class for about 6 years now. I've taught it all over the country, and it never fails. I have like 5 women there. 4 of them are sitting there, and they've got their dildos, and they're smiling, and they're enjoying themselves. And there's that 5th woman with this feral gleam in her eye, and this look of wicked glee on her face. And I don't care if she's got a 10-pound collar on and Master Jack's property for life tattooed on her forehead. I'm willing to believe those things are true, but I also know to a certainty that there's another facet to her personality. This is why women make the best torturers.
What would men do if they had their cocks on their foreheads like unicorns?
That reminds me of an old Japanese porno.
I'll bet you there'd be a lot more whiplash. Now, that was a segue.
No, I saw this porno and they wear this mask with a dick on it and they fuck her with it. It's highly erotic.
Well, they did an animation movie of, there was the bad guy in the thing, or the guy that was searching for something. When he fucked, his cock would explode and it would blow the girls up. And so, it was horrible.
Wow.
My daughter took me to her friend's house and they put it on, and I'm like this. And you think I'm sick?
Wow.
Hardly got a second date.
Yeah, no shit.
Jay gave me the most absolutely amazing answer to my question. I will always remember this. When I asked him how big his cock was once on my show the very first time.
I remember.
And what did you say? Do you remember what you said?
I said, I have the perfect size cock. My cock is just exactly long enough to reach my body.
He had me on the floor laughing. I'm going to joke. It's just too much. I got to get that hair out of my mouth. No, just joking. It was just, it was the best. I have to say that was the best answer that I've ever gotten. That threw me for a loop. I think I almost peed my pants with that question. With that answer. Almost peed my pants, which it's easy for me to do. Let's not talk about that.
Gee, are there questions in the chat room
Different
now?
show. They're filming 11.
Oh my God, how long is this show? What time is it? No. Come on, you guys, start giving us questions in the chat room. Inquiring minds want to know. We can also get questions in the live studio audience also. You can just shout it out.
Well, like going back to the testicular pain thing.
Testicular?
Sudden cardiac arrest from
Yes.
sudden severe pain to the test. For this reason, a growing number of place bases are outlawing ball kicking.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's such a fun recreational activity.
You know what they're replacing it with?
What?
Cock and ball intention.
Well, if you're doing regular CBT with, clothespins or needles or whatever, if you're ramping the pain up slowly, just like with harness hang syndrome, he's going to start to get symptomatic, pale, nausea, etc. You can still affect the outcome. You're still in control. Kick is like kick and pray. You've given up all of your control. You're betting on raw, blind luck that you won't rupture a testicle.
There's a technique to it. You build up to it. You warm the balls up. You wear a boot at first that has a little padding. It's a build-up.
Which is fine unless that's a defensible thing unless it happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about cock and ball torture.
No, actually, we're talking about ball busting. CBT is just a little bit different. It's a different intention, a different focus.
He's correcting me. Give me 5. Education is really important. Education.
Well, I can understand, like, from a male sub's point of view, I can understand the appeal. I've been kicked in the balls. It's not something you can tough your way through. Basically, you become sort of like you're aware that there's a pleasantly cool floor against your cheek, and then you become dimly aware that there's noise, and then you become dimly aware that the noise is screaming.
Right.
And then it starts to dawn on you that the screaming is coming from you.
I don't see a problem.
And that's when a world of pain just comes rushing in.
I don't see a problem with that.
But you get completely disempowered by, in this scenario, a woman paying attention to a very sexual part of your body. I can connect the dots. I can
Shame
see
on
the
your
appeal.
balls. Shame on you.
You know, and it only appeals to certain kind of masochists and submissives, you know, and a lot of times it has to do with like a childhood experience, and it brought them to a feeling of euphoria, and they still keep capturing that sense of euphoria, and somewhere along the line it got crossed into something sexual for them. You know, whatever it is, and I also find that they're into a few other fetishes as well.
Speaking of fetishes, Entropy says LOL, that means he's laughing out loud. Says,
Aww.
It's like someone just told Cassie there was no Santa Claus. That's why I was sitting here when you were having this serious conversation. I'm going.
No, looking at it from a legal standpoint,
Oh, my stomach, it just flipped.
you're familiar with the sporting phrase, no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Right? Well, in law, it's largely no damage, no case. So if you're stopped at a stoplight and a car comes up behind you and slams on its brakes and misses hitting you by a half an inch, you probably can't sue for that. But if the car slams into the back of your car, now you have a lawsuit. So in law, what happens is once the damage has occurred, you know, then we can look back on it and see, you know, I can defend 98% of what we do in BDSM to a judge. I mean, you know, I have a law degree myself. I can go into court and I can explain to that judge in terms that judge can relate to why they thought this behavior was reasonable to do 98% of the time. But there's a small number of practices I really can't defend to that judge in terms that the judge will listen to. And in this, I would put any form of breath play, any gun play that involves an actual firearm, ball kicking, chest punching, a phenomenon called commotio cordis, which is...
Oh, no, that's not good. You hit REN 17. That's an all-body tonifying point. Well, what are you going to do if you actually apply serious pressure there? That's going to have repercussion.
Well, I took his class. What was it again? Help refresh my memory. I got my little card, you know, saying that.
Oh, my first aid CPR class.
Yeah, I mean, it's the coffee. You have to excuse me and have it. It's like a drug. Okay, so I took his class, and he talked about punching, because that's what I used to do. I used to do a lot of punching on the chest, and he kind of told me that it's not to do it good with someone that's over the age of 40 or 45 years old.
Actually, that's probably not what I said.
Okay, what did you say?
Well, the phenomenon of
it.
cardiac arrest from a sudden blow to the chest is called commotio cordis.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes, it's the #1 killer in Little League games. You know, because an elastic chest wall is one of the comorbid factors.
So if a ball hits it?
Well, and are you talking mostly like in the sternum area?
Basically, in the collar, pretty much the entire anterior chest area. There may be some higher risk around the cardiac silhouette, but 70% of all the victims are under age 18, but that means that 30% of the victims are over age 18, and we now have commotio cordis deaths noted in people in their 50s. And well, the heart is an electromechanical pump. There's electrical discharge, squeezing, electrical recharge, and relaxing. The electrical recharge takes up about 3% of a given heartbeat, and if a blow to the chest lands during that interval, then there's a chance of inducing a cardiac arrest.
So what's the percentage of deaths from nipple play gone wrong? Because sometimes we do punching for nipple play.
We don't know. Again, these aren't mandated reports. Well, there's a national commotio cordis registry. I forget where it is, but again, a lot of these deaths aren't documented. We know that it happens, and
you know,
now that
people get flogged to their titties all the time. You know, I mean, is there going to be danger of having a heart attack if you get your boobies flogged?
I don't think so, because the pressure is more diffuse. But it's like a fist-like blow to the chest. Could induce it.
Well, finger flogging, I mean, I do that quite often. It's very intense.
Some guy posted recently in my FetLife group a video at a martial arts tournament. And these two guys start to punch. One punches the other in the chest, and the second guy falls over.
Wow.
A ref comes over, starts yelling for the medics.
What's his name died when he got hit here?
Well, the diaphragm.
Houdini.
Yeah.
Although he was sucker punched.
Yeah, he was.
And
he
he died
didn't have
of-
a chance
he died
to
of like
prep
a
his belly.
He died of like a perforated intestine or something.
Yeah,
like that.
because
He
one
lived
of my
for a few days.
one of my
I
former
didn't know
doms
that.
used to punch me in the stomach all the time. And if I was prepared and could prepare my diaphragm, didn't faze me a bit. But I was always worried about that time when I didn't know he was up to mischief and if he caught me off guard. Because there would be no way I could protect my internal organs at that point. The technique is, it's a certain hardening that you do of your abs to protect your internal organs.
I mean, fat won't protect it.
No, you have the muscle wall.
My
It
brother
might
hit me once
cushion
in the
it, but
stomach.
no, it's the muscle wall that protects you. It forms that armor to protect those internal organs.
So we're talking about things that can make your heart fail, and you're kicking in the balls, breath play, hitting in the chest, all of these things. What about orgasms? What about someone having an orgasm? Can you die from having your body tense up and release
You
it?
hear all the time about men who have a heart attack during sex, right when they orgasm.
But is
There's actually literature. I think it's like.
So
one
now
person-
I haven't had sex I'm afraid I might get a heart attack.
I think there actually is some literature on this. Apparently, there's like 1 death during sex per day in the United States.
Wow.
What? They should ban sex.
No.
No.
That's more than
Take
drug
the risk of
drivers.
people dying.
That's more than drug drivers.
Now, wait a minute.
Good, yeah.
We're at what? 300 million people?
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people dying because they're going, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I haven't.
primary cause is not
Oh.
sex. I'm sure there's another factor there somewhere that factors into dying while having sex.
So
I haven't.
Catlin in the chat room, write down what you think. Should sex be banned?
No!
Jay Wiseman did not recommend the banning of sex. Let's get that out there.
banning.
I get telephone syndrome enough as it is.
Let's start a rumor.
It's not
Well,
okay.
I haven't done a literature search on this, but I'm betting that since Viagra and related drugs came out, probably the death rate has gone up a little bit because you put dual 4-barrel carburetors on an old rattle-trap car.
And all them old guys are saying that, "Yeah, Doc, I'm fine. I can take this. I don't have any of those symptoms. Please give me the magic blue pill."
So I've only been with one person who took the little blue pill that I know of. Who knows? Of course.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, my sex life. I mean, and I've known him for a very, very long time, and his cock used to be straight, and then all of a sudden it went doop, doop. It was weird looking. It was like there was all this, it was like the blood was built up like somewhere, like here's the cock, and then it was built up like around here, and then here's the head, and it looked really strange.
You think he had a clog in his pipe or something?
I don't know. He took Viagra.
Oh, no, thank you.
He took Viagra.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Wow.
Entropy says, hey, if it saves just one life. And then he hashtags it. Bullshit.
Right?
Can somebody please
Of course,
tweet that on Twitter?
We won't be creating many new lives. So.
Well, then I know I will live forever because it's been 4.5 years. So who knows? I know.
Actually, it raises a legal topic that is kind of relevant because people ask me I run into people get killed crossing the street, or why don't you just hide under your bed? And
Crossing the street?
But there's actually a test they use in law to determine whether behavior is lawful or not. It was invented by Supreme Court Justice Learned Hand, who may have been poly, by the way.
Really?
Well, a lot of people are.
But basically, there's
some of their spouses are aware of it, and some of them are not.
You mean they're Pollyanny?
Well, apparently he shared his wife with another man for quite some number of years.
Wow.
Or no. Oh, that's politically correct.
Yes, that is.
But basically, to give you a
okay.
simple we look at the social utility of the conduct as opposed to the risk it provides. And if the social utility outweighs the risk, then it's generally acceptable behavior. So people get killed crossing the street, but there's enormous social utility Civilization couldn't exist without it, and there are measures we can take to make crossing the street risky.
Well, that's true.
And there's absolutely a cultural and subjective aspect to it.
You guys,
I mean,
I'm never leaving the house.
Well, like for example, let's take the cage fighting.
Yeah.
Cage fighting is illegal in about half the states.
Wow.
So again, it's just a social values thing. Half the states have decided that there's enough social utility in cage fighting that it's legal to have matches, and half the states have come to a different conclusion about it.
Now, your hand went up. You had a question?
Yes, I was saying, Jay, you've been called the maven of safety in the BDSM world, and you're talking about all these exotic things that may indeed have a bad result, but you also have mentioned that there are some very common things that could happen to anybody, and things that you might be able to do to avoid them. Like, what's the most common mishaps that can happen in a dungeon or in a scene?
Don't leave the house.
Well, as I said, the really big risk factor is highly restricted bondage and completely alone. That's the big one. For all this talk we do about all these other things, that is the big one in terms of frequency.
Ruben, Lou Ruben says, Jay, can I do bondage in public? Love your Lou. Love you. Love the sense of humor.
Can you? Yes.
Yes.
Is it physically possible for you to do bondage in public?
Absolutely.
I urge you to consider the risk-benefit ratio.
Take photographs. Enlighten us all.
But like on the subject of evaluating tightness.
I'm so glad that everybody gets back on the track, because I'm always off the track.
When I did the Erotic Bondage Handbook, I actually spent 3 days in the UC San Francisco Med School library researching articles on restraint injuries. And so, like, I've got one journal article of 35 restraint-related fatalities. Guess what all 35 cases had in common?
They were by themselves.
Yeah. Inadequate
Wow.
monitoring.
Wow.
Monitoring is the solvent to 100,000 problems. But like, for example, on the subject of assessing tightness, there's short-term bondage, there's long-term bondage. And I put the dividing line at 2 hours because, unconscious patients in hospital beds are turned every 2 hours to help cut down on bed sores. And it's a nice subjective thing. Now, under the parameter of 2 hours or less, there's all this stuff about cutting off circulation. Well, when they do a knee replacement, they put a tourniquet around your thigh, shut off the blood flow to your leg for 2 to 3 hours while they replace the knee joint.
Yeah.
Let the tourniquet up, and the tissue is generally fine. Peripheral tissue is actually fairly resistant to a lack of perfusion for a while. So,
I only know one person personally where they had to amputate the arm because the blood flow had been cut off from it for so long that the veins actually died in his arm.
wow.
But you know how long it was?
How long?
8 hours.
Okay, I can believe that.
Yeah, he had passed out unconscious on some very heavy narcotics and fell on his arm in such a way that he cut all the circulation off, and he was passed out for a full 8 hours.
Wow.
Now, he could still use his arm somewhat, but because the veins and the vessels had died, the muscle tissue was starting to basically die off as well, and they were going to have to amputate.
To highlight the question that Lou asked about, can I do bondage in public? He also, the thing that he put with question mark, legally.
That would depend on the specific facts.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
Well, let me finish on this one point.
Whoa, you just got me going.
About-
Okay, I'll settle down.
About assessing tightness, because I wanted to find out, well, according to the literature, restrained patients in medical institutions have a 3% baseline rate of complication from being put in restraints. Most of us have done bondage scenes where everything seemed to be okay, but afterwards, the person's got some numbness or tingling. It happens every now and
Well, I've
then.
had all the capillaries broken in my arms all the way up to where the rope was. And it is a direct cutoff, and you can see the difference. This is all kind of a strawberry purple, and this is normal skin color. The first few times we thought it was an allergic reaction to the rope, and then I figured it out. It was breaking my capillary.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at ABN, and they were doing bondage, suspension, and there was a young girl that was in ropes, and she was suspended. And I looked at her, and her feet were purple, and then her feet got darker and darker and darker, and I almost got kicked out of there because I went to the people that were doing that, and I says, her feet are pretty purple. I think we need to check on this. And they told me to get out. They said, you're disturbing us. Get out of here. And they threatened to throw me out.
Wow.
It was pretty bad.
Well, to finish my point,
Yes.
and let me make it clear, I'm talking about floor work here. I'm not talking about suspension. Suspension is just a whole different world. But under the parameter of non-suspension bondage lasting 2 hours or less, the only thing that was reliably predictive of above baseline percentage of problems turned on the question of was the bondage or was the bondage not painfully tight. On that question, there was a very strong correlation. It turns out changes in temperature, changes in color, the thickness of the rope, whether it's along a bone or a joint, whether or not you can slip a finger, none of those turn out to be terribly predictive of complications or lack thereof. Yeah, I boiled it down to a 6-word mantra. Good pain, good. Bad pain, bad. And what I tell my students is you tough it out through bad pain at your peril. There is no safe minimum duration for bad pain. And bottoms know bad pain when they feel it.
Oh, absolutely. I know the exact difference between the feeling of nerve pain and circulatory. Circulatory issues, yeah, it's really uncomfortable, but I've never had an injury from it, so to speak. I was uncomfortable for the first few minutes when the blood flow was returning. Always fine. The nerve stuff was always something I had to deal with. And sometimes, I actually had to put my wrist brace back on to, kind of help relieve things, or ice, or do ibuprofen, or, maybe go get a massage or something to loosen up.
Yeah.
More statements and comments in the chat room from Lou. I love his questions and comments. There is a lot of rope bondage going on. Should we push this on vanillas? How do you feel about it? And then his next statement is an artistic tie in the park, a gathering of bondage people among educated suspensioners. He says, but let Jay finish. He just told me not to disturb you.
I'm done with that topic for now.
So you want to highlight how you feel about the question that he asked and the statement?
It would depend on the facts, and also there's a concept in law that's hugely important, and that concept is discretion. So let's say you're doing a bondage gathering in a park, and somebody calls the police, and the officers respond. They could probably make a number of defensible choices. They could probably decide, since, to restrain someone against their will is the crime of false imprisonment, but here nobody's being restrained against their will.
Exactly, it's consensual.
I'm not, the officers could decide, you know what, there's no crime being committed here. Have a nice day. Or possibly they might choose to see a violation. But yeah, this would be one where they would have a certain amount of discretion.
Well, he said, I also agree with Jay. He says, good pain, good, bad pain, bad. He has a nice mantra. He says, rope booming. I can't see with my glasses.
Rope bombing.
Rope bombing? Oh, what, another term, another thing that people are doing that I don't know about? What the fuck?
I don't think I've ever heard that term.
No. So what is that? Can you explain that to us, Lou? Okay. I have a question. So you're in a public bar with alcohol.
Okay.
Someone gets on stage, and they're doing a BDSM scene as a performance.
Okay.
And the place is filled with vanilla people.
Okay.
And they do breath play.
Okay. Well, in California, they'd be committing a felony in all probability.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Well.
When did it become a felony? When did it cross over into a felony?
About 2 years ago.
That's a great question.
About 2 years ago. It's California Penal Code 273.5.
How do you remember these things? I can't even remember my address.
He's an expert witness. Duh.
I am a BDSM catastrophe reconstruction specialist. And when it's crashed and burned so badly that it's washed up into the courts, the aging hippie here tends to be the guy who gets called.
And I can't even remember my name half the time. That's from head trauma.
Oh, by the way, I did something once I shouldn't have done.
Oh, secrets.
On that fatal fisting case I was on, I met the U.S. attorney for lunch, and she took me back to her office. They had a new digital courtroom, and she was very proud of their new quarters. And she was introducing me, and she goes, and she took me up to her supervisor and said, "This is Mr. Wiseman. He's our fisting expert." I went, "Hi." And she kind of like flinched. Now, I'm a little bit old school, and under old school etiquette, the gentleman does not offer his hand to a lady when he's introduced. He waits to see whether or not she holds out her hand. So.
Oh, I never knew that.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's very Southern, yes.
I never knew that.
But
excuse me, I don't shake out no hands of no heathen.
But I have one of my little life sayings is, "The moment was there." So I just, hi.
Lou has given us the definition of bombing, of rope bombing. Okay. People gather in large groups and go out in public and do bondages until they get chased home or get...
Well, it's like a flash mob.
Get tired of tying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Well, if it was public property and no crime was being committed.
Well, when I was growing up, there was some kids took some other kids into the woods and tied them, and everybody kept talking about them being tied with rope, and I wondered why my foot was getting hard. I couldn't figure it out.
When I was 4 years old.
Can you remember? When you're 4 years, fuck! I don't even.
When I was 4 years old, I bought a Roy Rogers comic book specifically because there was a panel in it of Dale Evans tied up alone in a cave. And there was something about having a woman tied up and only I knew where she was that appealed.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I really didn't have much idea what you did to a tied up woman. But there
was
but there was a part of me that thought it was a really good idea.
Oh wow.
Well, I have no childhood memory whatsoever. So, none. Ever since my concussion at the age of 12. So, no childhood memory. In fact, I don't even have memories of the last sentence that you said. No, I'm just joking.
Most of my stuff is pretty forgettable.
No, it isn't. It isn't. A lot of the stuff that you say have, and just to tell you, I paid attention. When you I may get the phrasing wrong, but I remember the theme of it and what it really means.
I'll have to send you some of my crossword puzzles. What I mainly do in law these days is I tutor people for the bar exam. And I bought a book of bar prep crossword puzzles off of eBay. And it was but I thought of some ways to do my own. So I got some crossword puzzle software, and I've been creating these legal crossword puzzles. And the students just love them. Anything will make studying for the bar exam a little less horrific. But I'm thinking, hey, I've got the software here. So for my first aid CPR classes, I've got first aid and CPR crossword puzzles. And I've been wanting, I remember, people don't remember what you verbally tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm at a leather conference and I teach the bondage and alone thing, the next day, if and I teach it, I'll have some of the same students. They can't, most of the time, they can't accurately. So I wanted to come up with a one-page summary of the principles I teach in every bondage class. And so instead of just having a boring old page of text, I've got these kink word puzzles. And I'll have to send them to you. I've done one on bondage. I've done one on just about gags. I've done one on CBT. Done one on negotiation. Done one on polyamory.
I have a low attention span.
There's a word bank at the bottom.
I really do. I have this. My head goes from one thing to another thing. See,
I think I have some copies of that from one of your last classes.
Now he's not speaking to me. I'm typing.
It's in one of my toy bags in the outside pocket. I know exactly where it's at.
What is
one of his crossword puzzles? Actually, two of them.
Yeah, the students just love them.
I didn't get one.
Yeah, and feel free to distribute those as widely as you like.
Cool.
Yeah.
You should do a BDSM crossword puzzle book.
That may happen.
Yeah, I think
That may
People
happen.
actually like that. I used to write for a leftist publication, and we started doing crossword puzzles that were based on the articles in the publication that month, and people loved them. That after doing them for a year, they asked us to start putting them in books.
And today we picked up a painting, a frame for my daughter is in her wedding. She's dressed up in an Albanian wedding dress, and her fiance is in an Albanian wedding attire for male. And then they have a goat. So they went to a place and they took a picture with a goat. So they needed a frame and went to go get it. And it turns out the guy that was there, he builds games and apps for games. I said, "Oh, you do games? I have a game." And I told him I started to tell him what I wanted. My daughter goes, "Mom," and she goes, "You don't want to hear it." And so I'm going to have to see him at the wedding.
I have to tell you, it was a real moment of truth when my own daughter asked me for a copy of SM 101.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's actually a landmark that I do for my writing. It's like, would I give this to my daughter and her husband, and if this was their sole source of information, would I feel comfortable with that? And if you'll forgive a patriarchal statement, every woman is some man's daughter. And it's like, so you've certainly given your book to any number of other men's daughters. What makes your piece of talking DNA so special?
Well, my daughter,
but it was a big moment to Hank. And actually, she used the negotiation section to figure out that the guy she was seeing at the time was an abusive creep, and she got rid of him.
Wow.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So you guys make sure you read S&M 101 by Jay Wiseman, and you'll be able to get rid of the creep.
Yeah. Now this Wednesday at Sanctuary LAX, I'm teaching my negotiation as foreplay class. And I figured out back in the late 80s that everything that happens in a scene falls into one of 16 categories. So I made a list of these categories, and I created a mnemonic to help me remember them. I've been using that checklist for a quarter of a century. I've never had a bad outcome when I've gotten clear agreement on all 16 points prior to playing. Success rate of 100%. Over a quarter of a century.
Okay, so what's the mnemonic?
I'll tell you later. But I'll tell you the categories.
You'll tell me the categories? Okay.
People, roles, place, time, accidents, limits, sex, intoxicants, bondage, pain, marks, humiliations, safe words, opportunities, follow-up, and the all-important question, is there anything else we need to talk about before we actually do this?
Very good.
Wow.
Well, there's a well-known Dom right here in LA who tells the story on himself. He was at a play party one night, and he had met a lady, and their lizard brains were kind of liking the smell of each other's pheromones, and they're watching a play, and he goes, "Well, how do you feel about bondage?" And she goes, "Oh, I love bondage." "Do you?" "Oh, yeah. "What about flogging?" "Well, flogging is delightful." "Well, how do you feel about clamps?" "Oh, clamps totally get me wet." "How do you feel about knife play?" "Oh, yes, knife play is excellent." "So would you like to play?" "Sure, let's play." "Okay, on your knees." Two girls. "What?" They had gotten all the way through, each thinking that the other was going to be the bottom. That's why roles is question number 2 on the checklist.
I think it's important to ask roles.
Well, that's one of the first questions we do in my class. I do like make everybody do an introduction, so we know who we're tying with and if anybody needs a partner. And I'm always like, let us know if you identify as a bottom, a top, or a switch. That way, if you need a partner, I know who to set you up with, because it's very important. And I know a lot of times a lot of people switch, and there are quite a few people who aren't sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
In my class at the Laird, we got permission from a long time ago to use S&M 101, but we do S&M 101 open forum because it's not me, it's everyone's asking questions. And we always ask, what they want to be called and what they identify as. And when I first did that, somebody came up to me and said, "You can't put labels on people." And I said, "You've got to be kidding me." So the next time I taught the class, I said, "What role do you want that you think you are?" I said, "I'm not putting a label on you because your role may change."
Mm-hmm.
I says, "But this is just to give us some information about who you are and where your head and mindset is at the moment. And I'm not putting a label. I mean, we can't even put labels on people. I mean, I'm not politically correct. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna leave the room now.
Oh,
You know?
no.
But I think it's really, really important for us to communicate and to at least do some labeling so we can understand who we're talking to. Like that incident where you talked about the two people and they both were tops.
I think one of the things that's going on here is that what we're doing is running ahead of the precision of our language to describe. Yeah, I believe this is actually a myth, but we don't like. I apologize if this is a politically incorrect term. The Eskimos have their 200 words for snow. That probably all sorts of.
Damn it.
That's all.
Fuck.
That's all sorts of. But what we're doing, this is a time of sexual revolution, and what we're doing in kink, we don't yet have the verbally precise enough tools yet to really describe it. So we have all of these talking across purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to freak the audience out for a second. It's bloody hot in here.
Yes, it is.
Listen to that meditation sound. It's so warming. It's so wonderful. It's like okay, that's enough. It's hot in here.
Looks bad when your guests have heat stroke.
Yes,
I know.
it
I'm starting to sweat, and I'm going because we normally do it. That's one of the reasons why we're doing only an hour show because it gets so hot. In the winter, it won't be.
Okay.
And hopefully by next year, we'll be into a new studio, huge studio space where we have air conditioner that doesn't make noise. Do it one more time. Give you guys some joy. We're going to dom the air conditioner.
Freeze.
Get us cold. Breathe cold air now. There.
Oh.
Now it's domming me. It doesn't want to turn off. You got to have some sense of humor in BDSM. We take it so seriously.
It's great to have Lou's input in this, by the way.
It is.
Yeah, I love Lou.
Actually, I have a question for Lou.
Yeah, Lou, you want to fool around? I haven't been at sex in 4.5 years.
Well, everybody's
I'd
heard.
fly up there, Lou.
Everybody's heard of shibari.
Shibari, yeah.
And I know that Lou teaches a class called Lubari.
Yep, Lubari.
Yes.
I've noticed I have something of a tendency to invent my own bondage techniques, and I've invented, I think, more than a dozen. So I could easily do a presentation or maybe even a one-day intensive.
Wiseman Bondage?
Could I get away with calling it Jabari?
That's what I
Jabari.
thought you were going to say, Jabari. Hmm.
Well, I'm Jewish. Could I call it Jubari?
You could.
Oh, I need more guilt. Oh God, I'm. It's just
By the way, you know why Catholic girls make the best subs?
because they wear patent leather shoes. I don't know.
They already know how to kneel.
Mm-hmm.
They understand guilt and penance.
Yes, they do.
And few things in this world are sweeter than fucking a girl who's just certain she's going to hell for doing it.
Alright, that's good.
Jewish ladies'
Now,
favorite
I
wine.
do have to ask you, the majority of your
No, that's
bondage
not true.
techniques, do you consider them Western or Eastern?
If I had to choose, I would say Western.
Then you can't call it Jabari. You cannot base it on a Japanese word if you are not doing Eastern bondage.
Now it's time for.
You are going to have to come up with a
Snobby
Western
rope.
term and add J
Right?
to it.
Let's be snobbish rope. Let's do the snubby rope.
You're giving me something to think about. Thank you.
Yes.
They said Jay Barry. Yes, yes. I encourage all those. What's that word? Can't see it.
Baris?
Aris.
Baris.
Yeah.
Baris. That's it. B-A-R-I.
I mean, there are so many rope snobs that are out there. I mean, I have an opinion of rope snobs. You're not a rope snob. and
No,
you're
I
not a rope
teach
snob.
an eclectic blend of Eastern and Western, and I teach my students how to make the rope their own. I mean, being stuck following an exact recipe every time you play, that's too much pressure, man. I just want to rope that gal, tie her down, and have my way with her. I don't care if it's a perfect Akatakota.
No, you're not going to tell me. I'm sorry. Lou says it's all about options. Yes. And when we take, and when there's only one way to do something, one way you need to do it and to express it, you take away the action.
You do.
And
I
I
think
think
that's
that,
spontaneity.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it looks like, they say if it looks like shit, it's shit. If it looks like shibari, it's shibari. So.
And there's this school called Messy Rope.
Messy Rope, yeah.
I love Messy Rope.
Messy rope?
Messy Rope.
Yeah, it's just down and dirty rope work. Yeah, it's got some basis in Japanese, but it really is messy rope.
It's down and dirty.
It's takedown time.
Okay.
I mean, it's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be efficient.
But life isn't perfect.
I taught a class at Threshold last week on rough rope about using exceptionally abrasive rope for bondage, like sisal
some
rope.
people like that. Those are the people that want to be tied in barbed wire, and there are those people out there.
There are.
And it can be safely done with, compared to using the 2-prong bar or the 4-prong bar.
I learn something new every day.
It's all
Yes, one turns out, one has it on both sides. It's like, you do the math. If the sticky thing's on the outside, it's probably not going to poke you.
Well,
but it sure does look freaking awesome, doesn't it?
Well, this is perfect for this conversation. Lou said bondage is not just Eastern or Western. You're damn right, Lou. It's messy.
Yes.
As long as she can't get loose.
Messy.
You females are an elusive lot.
Oh, I can.
I tie mostly men.
My phone number is.
One night only. Lou says, I would love to come to Jay Barry classes. Yay! Woo, woo, woo.
I'll come to yours. You can come to mine.
Could I have a Mel Barry? We can meet at a bar.
Of course.
Is that going to be a sushi bar?
We're going to learn how to tie fish. But is that Japanese? Is that Western?
That is good, but it is not shibari.
I think let's talk about our community. Let's talk about all three of us have been in the lifestyle for a very long time. How many years?
I've been in the community at large for 8. In my personal life, well, it just depends on when you think I made the crossover. I mean, people have been tying me up and having sex with me since I was, somewhere around that 20 age.
That's why we have her as a host on TSR Network. Because she's a kinky motherfucker. Oh, I gotta stop swearing.
Well, I didn't fuck that many mothers.
I did the brothers.
I am in actual fear right now.
So, how many years?
Well, I started doing kink, I believe, in either 1970 or 1971, and I attended my first kink event in 1975.
And I've been doing this for 20 years and teaching for the last 12, and doing the shows for 12 years. And this is a question for all of us, and please join in it in the live audience and also in the chat room. Have you seen a change in BDSM since when you first started? And one of you guys be the first one to talk.
I've seen 2 right off the bat.
Hey, no Barry is not acceptable. Oh, love you. I want
Probably,
to
as I mentioned,
sorry.
as I mentioned earlier, probably
yeah.
the biggest change is this is much less taboo than it used to be. And at this point, our history can be pretty meaningfully divided into the pre-cyber and cyber eras, when I started putting modems in PCs in the early 90s. And what the internet did is the internet brought straight women into this community in significant numbers.
Not gay women?
Well, they were already, well, I'm not going to make a generalization about that, but at Society of
Let's see how politically correct Jay can
at
be.
Society of Janus orientations for years, you'd have 12 guys and 1 couple. The only way you learned about Janus back then was pretty much to buy an adult newspaper and see the edit back, and a lot of straight women are just simply never going to go into an adult bookstore. And
Really?
But nowadays,
I used to go all the time.
So did I.
that's why I adore both of
I'm
you.
not exactly straight, though.
But nowadays, she types spanking into Google, and 3 weeks later, she's at a munch.
So I need to put that into my words to find my website. Quick question, quick things really quickly. We'll go back to that question. Entropy, because I don't want to miss some of these comments. Entropy goes, what about sushi bar, chocolate bar, or sushi bar, chocolate bar? And then bondage is used for the interior of my streetcar called Robari. Okay, so they're having a play on words.
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry. We'll go back to the conversation.
But as to you, the changes you've seen.
Well, you know, in the 8 years that I've been running around the community at large, now I noticed a lot of regional differences in that time. You know, people in the Midwest, how they handle this as compared to like people on the West Coast, whether it's in Northern California or in SoCal. And LA is an animal all onto itself. You know, totally different rules and structure here than there is in the rest of the country. You know, that part of it I haven't seen so much, but what I have seen is a lot of younger people are now showing up at the clubs, and they've researched this stuff on the internet, and they, you know, it's new, it's titillating, it's exciting. And I'm getting like 18-year-olds approach me, you know, can I serve you? And you know, my first question is, well, what does being a submissive mean to you, and what can you do to serve me? 99% of the people don't write back because they don't want to think about the service aspect of this in the old school. One young girl, I did take her on for about a month, trying to, you know, and teach her some proper protocol. And I'm very high protocol. I mean, damn it, I required that she write a proper letter, not just a one-sentence email. That was the hardest thing for her. To, you know, she's like, well, what is that? I said, you know, just like in school, you learn to write snail mail with a greeting, a body of a letter with complete sentences and complete thoughts, and you close it with a proper closing, sincerely using your proper name. You do address me with proper protocol. I am Miss Cassie. You will capitalize that. This was all too much for her to even take in. She says, I just want to have kinky sex. I said, no, you asked to serve a mistress.
Cassie, when did you become your mother? No, just joking.
Oh.
No, when you were talking about the proper, no, it's just.
I'm in the line of fire now.
It was just a humorous. I mean, because I saw her talking. We've had conversations. Her parents are terrific, wonderful parents, and it was just a smart-ass remark, and it was just It was almost like a school teacher. You have to do this, and it turned me on. Never mind.
I have a friend who has a SIG file that says, I am not a brat. It's just a slight verbal emission control problem.
No, but it was great. I can't filter myself sometimes. It was never mind.
That's quite all right.
She knows I love her.
Yeah.
She knows my sense of humor. More? More? Have you seen more changes?
Well, I mean, you know, that's the basic one, you know, and like many kids, they're into sensation, you know, and of course they're going to equate everything sexually, and this is the newfound, you know, endorphin rush for them. And so many of them do not realize the tradition and the protocol and, you know, how this lifestyle has evolved. I mean, my first exposure, you know, was stuff within the leather realm. Mostly, I didn't start getting actual contact with the community until the early 90s. At that point, I was exploring my sexuality. I knew that I was not straight, you know, and I knew at that point I just could not continue trying to be straight. So I was exploring the lesbian and gay community at that point. Yeah, I was crooked. Yeah, that's it. Oh, I do have a tilted uterus.
Oh, God.
You know, a little scoliosis in the spine.
Remind me never to drink coffee before a show again.
That might not be a good idea.
No.
But I understand you have similar issues when you drink alcohol.
Oh, no. When I drink alcohol, I take my clothes off, dance on a table, and scream that I'm horny. And then I wake up the next morning and look at the person next to me and go, what the fuck? Not a good thing. Changes. I have seen a tremendous amount of changes in our community in the way that we are influenced by the fashion world and how we are influenced by so many other things in our BDSM style, in our BDSM way of life. Protocol has changed. You're either super, super strict with protocol, or people that have been in the lifestyle for a long time throw protocol out the window. And that bothers me. That bothers me. If there's things that are set up in relationships, like they're my submissive, or they're in my family, or whatever, or they're underneath my protection, that means they're underneath my protection. Everything needs to go through me. And when I see people not respect that, it really bothers me. And I think because we're not a free-for-all here. We have to have these in place. Whether you think that you're leather or not leather, all of these principles were put down for a reason.
Yes.
And it is to bring some common sense into our lifestyle. And it's to put down these foundations so we can build a better community. I have had people say to me, there is no community. And it really bothers me.
But you can say that about America at large. I mean, traditions have fallen to the wayside. There used to be rites of passage into adulthood. We don't see that anymore. I mean, there used to be distinct clothing rites of passion. When you were a little kid, I was dressed in petticoats and pinafores, white gloves. I looked like a little girl. The little girls nowadays, they look like a little miniature hooker Barbie.
Yeah.
They're putting them in little adult clothes. Yeah, some of the stuff is really cute and fun and everything, but there's no distinct rite of passage. There's no, you don't go from little kid clothes to like middle kid clothes to clothes you get to wear in high school to when you're finally that adult. And I remember when I was a little girl looking at my mom's clothes and what she had to wear to be a proper lady. She had to wear a girdle. She had to wear a slip. Her purse and shoes matched. She had the pillbox hat and the right gloves and the proper jewelry, which was little pearl balls that were clip-on, because a lady did not pierce her ears back then, and the matching pearl set.
Mine are not pierced because my mother was against it. They're still not pierced.
But there used to be a distinct, rite of passage. And, young ladies wore something different than somebody in their 30s until all the way up until you fit that role of matron, where you changed into a different thing. And people used to wear black for a year after somebody died. And there was a certain, neckline protocol and stuff. And so much of that stuff just totally went to the wayside. A lot of it was in the 60s.
We're running our government right now.
Where people decided to buck tradition. But in bucking tradition, we let go so many rites of passage that people are confused. And, there's no distinction between generations and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, some of it is good. We've let some of the prejudices go to the wayside. But then again, there's a lack of direction like we've never seen before.
Well, in the BDSM community, there's a lack of directions. We have people that have come into the lifestyle, that's been in the lifestyle for a year, and they're teaching classes.
Yeah.
And they're authorities on everything about BDSM. I mean, I have my theory is this. The first 3 years, you educate yourself. Then 3 to 6 years, you think you know everything. And then from 6 to on, you realize you know shit. And you go back and take classes. Yeah. But they're skipping it. I mean, to go in and to be taught by someone that's been in the lifestyle for a year, and they're an authority on the lifestyle. To me, it's amazing.
I've actually thought about the possibility of doing an novitiate year, of pretending I was a newbie and going to all the newbie classes I could go to, just to see what they're being taught these days.
Well, next Saturday is my class. Come to my newbie class.
What time is it?
2:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Teaching 2 to 4.
Oh, I'm teaching from 2. Oh, see, that's why we could never get together. Because you got your time schedule.
I don't deserve you.
Nobody deserves me.
Now you see, you try to give her a compliment. You know,
my mother says I don't wish anybody, I don't wish anybody any luck with her at all. So, it's just who I am. Know thyself. It's important in BDSM is to know who you are, to know thyself. You come in with a healthy perspective of who you are. If you don't have that healthy perspective, you're going to get used, abused, chewed up, and spit out.
Also,
And I see so much of it.
Also understand the role that you're seeking. You know, a lot of people don't understand the difference between a submissive, a slave, a masochist, a sadist, a dominant person, a person who switches, a person who's a top, a person who's a bottom. And I get a lot of confused bottoms that are negotiating scenes like a dom. And it's like, I don't play with those people, you know. It's like, I find it very difficult to set up a scene for that person, you know. Then I feel like I'm a service top, which totally takes the fun out of for the scene if I'm just, you know, servicing your need. And it's like, well, you know.
You're a life support system for a whip?
Yeah, basically. And I mean, that's not what it's about for me. When I have to negotiate, when I'm topping for a scene, that's hard work. I'm responsible for somebody's life. You know, and there's a lot of things I need to know before we even enter into this.
That's right.
You know, and then during the scene, God damn it, I need you to be quiet.
Quiet. I want you to scream.
And I prefer not to have to gag you.
Crying does a good thing with me.
My ex came up with something on that. It is possible that when I bottom, I have a slight tendency to make helpful suggestions.
Oh, you're topping from the bottom.
That's why I always carry a roll of duct tape in my bag.
But what she said was, what she said was, if it involves a health or safety issue, please feel free to speak up.
Yes.
If it doesn't involve a health or safety issue, I'm going to flip a coin. If it comes up heads, nothing happens. If it comes up tails, you get 4 hard cane strokes.
Oh, I'd keep your mouth shut if I were you.
Well, again, we're back to risk-benefit ratio.
Oh, so
you know, so
I'm learning curve.
yeah, and I have another pet peeve. Okay. Okay, this is another pet peeve. We didn't see this until FetLife came about. How many fucking people do you need in your family? Isn't 1 or 2 enough?
Oh, I know.
You have
brothers,
people in
sisters, protecting,
yeah, you have people in Dubuque, Iowa you've never fucking met. I mean, give me a break. 25, 30 people in the family. You're ready to. I mean, how do you take a piss? How do you take a bath? How do you eat? How do you live a life when you have 20, 30, 40, 50 people in your family? I can't even have one because they can't deal with me.
Well, I was at a slave auction, you know, for charity, and one young lady showed up and bid on this, you know, hot young hunk. She didn't know what to do with him because she had been doing BDSM for years, but only online, and had no idea what to do with a live body. This poor young hunky man was so disappointed. All he wanted was his ass paddled. Something, you know, pinch my butthole, anything, you know, bite my nipple. And she was just like, oh, I don't even know if I can touch him.
Then don't buy him, bitch. Oh, everything has changed, and it has. We can't deny that with the event of 50 Shades of Grey coming out and everyone's up in an uproar on FetLife talking about how this is going to change our community. Look I'm going to tell you guys something right now. The story of O didn't change us.
Nope.
Exit to Eden didn't change us. The secretary didn't change us. This is not going to change. You're going to have looky-loos that are going to go, oh my God, they're going to come in and really see that we are the real.
There is this book that some people like. Perhaps they could be. Perhaps a certain book could be recommended.
SNM 101
Oh,
by Jay Wiseman.
Nice segue.
there you go. I am a professional.
Nice.
All right.
Nicely done.
Something.
But do not give him water after 11 because he turns into.
So when I was new, one of the first events I went to,
Yes.
this lady came up to me and said, how about if we have a wrestling match with the loser being submissive to the winner? Now, she came up to about here on me. So I had a hunch. I knew how this was going to end.
Yes.
And my first love in BDSM is bondage. Okay, my first fantasies involve bondage. I've written 2 books just on bondage, done 5 DVDs on it. I may have actually taught 1,000 classes on bondage.
I believe that. I believe you have a thing that just says, I bought them from Jay Wiseman.
I'm sorry, it's
being
1,000 in
Jay
one
Wiseman's
class.
demo bottom.
Yeah.
So I pinned her fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And got her clothes off her, and I grabbed some rope and I started tying her up. And yes, she was pretty easy on the eyes. And I got her in this great hog tie, and I was going, oh wow, this is great. I got, oh, beautiful. She's not getting. And I went, now what? And I look up, and this was at a Pro Sub studio, and there are these things hanging on the wall. And I'm not even sure where the handle is on some of them. I'm not even sure. It's like, I felt like I was in like an alien spaceship. and she's then all of a sudden she's looking up at me like, well, master. I was like, you know.
And your dick got hurt.
That could have happened. But we hadn't negotiated for any kind of sex or anything like that, so.
We have in the chat room has just come in Mistress Carla, who was on Cassie's show. Excellent, wonderful lady, and she's in Florida. And so welcome.
Yes, welcome.
You're welcome to the chat room. I wanted to make sure. And so now we can get back to the conversation.
Okay.
Because I like to say to people, when you come in the chat room, it's like when you come into my class, you're going to be called out. So you can't come in individually.
Any questions floating in?
No, they're just Entropy says, talk about me again. She doesn't have issues when she drinks alcohol. She has an entire, is that subscription?
Subscription.
Because I don't have my glasses on. I'm just.
Some people have issues.
See, I don't have my glasses on.
Some people have issues. Some people have subscriptions.
It doesn't register with me.
More baggage than the cargo hold of a jumbo jet.
Having a gray moment. Yeah, so that's my point of view of this present day in the BDSM community.
Dun, dun,
dun.
I'm of the opinion that overall it's getting better.
I think we're more open.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have much better communication now. I mean, if, like when that bondage crash and burn happened in Rome a while back, you know, in the pre-cyber era, that would have been known to about 20 people locally, and that would have been it. And now the reports get around, you know, the breath play conviction. Mm-hmm. So if we get a major crash and burn, you know, it can be analyzed to a certain extent.
You can. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain amount of awareness that will come forth, you know, because a lot of people do not exercise common sense and bringing a mortality issue to this, you know, taking it out of the fantasy realm and making it real, you know, brings reality to the situation. It's like, you know, so many people's sexual fantasies. I mean, some of the stuff the number of people I have met that have rape fantasy actually really takes me back. I mean, for anybody that's really ever truly been raped,
I mean, mine been there,
and you know that it is just, it's hard for me to understand why you would want that as a fantasy, why you would want somebody to take you that way against your will, but yet so many people find that exciting and titillating.
Did you see what they did in India about the 2 men that tried to rape a girl?
No.
They tied them up, and the women in the town, wherever it was beating them with shoes. Beating them, hitting their balls, absolutely beating them. So this is going to be a very, very bad question.
Okay.
Because I got to say it, and it's not funny, but it is funny in my head, but it's not funny. And if I don't say it, is beheading like breath play?
What? Whoa.
What happened?
Uh-oh. Maybe call.
That killed
No, that's just over there. We're still live. That's our. We have a no. You can't do anything about it. We have a big TV in front of us, and it's hooked up to another computer, and the screen went blank. But I can see us over here, so we're fine over here. Right. So yeah, that's what I was looking at, because that's why I was kind of. Now I know that was bad humor. people are going to write me hate mail about it, but that's okay because we all have
Beheading
opinions.
is not best friend.
Well, they would still be able to breathe.
Oh,
Nothing's obstructing their airway.
Wow.
You took it farther.
Yes,
I like
you
it.
did.
Give me 5.
Oh my
Well,
God.
just a matter of analyzing it. You know.
True.
Now I don't feel so bad. You're as sick as I am.
Oh,
Wow.
beheading.
There's a silent moment.
Yes, there is. And you know what's running through my mind when you say that? I think of a little miniature guillotine and a penis in it. A beheading.
I'm moving
Well,
over here.
I guess that could be, a fancy way to do a circumcision.
Yeah, then we could put the
my
balls on a
goodness.
rack and stretch them.
Good.
Help me.
Hey, Jay.
Wow.
Women are dangerous in packs.
Yeah, I'm surprised, and I can't go to any class that teaches rape fantasies because I just can't do it because so many women that I know have been raped,
Mhm.
and that's unconsensual.
Yeah.
And even just the play of it, it's like nails on a chalkboard with me.
I'd have to know someone pretty well before I would think about doing a scene like that.
Yeah, wrestling is fun.
Mhm.
Holding them down, that's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
But actually, there are people that I know have been pursued by women who want them to, they've never met, want them to break into their house and rape them and then leave. And I'm like, how could you do that? I can't understand.
But yeah, there are some people out there that they become so obsessed with this fantasy that they really are willing to take that risk. I knew one guy within my 6 degrees of separation, did not know him personally, but people were actually hiring
Is that
him.
Kevin Bacon?
No. But they were actually, women from out of state would hire him to actually plan the kidnapping and the rape and the whole thing.
Wow.
And he got away with it for a number of years until something went awry, which can definitely happen because you don't know if it's some lover or something that's actually setting this up for somebody who really doesn't know. It's just not a great place to go.
Do you want to untie that rope?
Oh, you mean the rope on my dress? You think it's gonna split and fall open?
It's not, is it? It's
I don't know.
it's temptation. It's
It is,
confusing.
there's a little.
Jay.
There's this.
Mhm.
She's playing games with us.
I don't mind.
Why would I play games?
She should be spanked.
I don't think so.
Well, we only have.
I think the only switch on this panel is this man in the middle.
Yeah, I don't switch. Well, I did once, and I won't do it again. So, enough about switching. So, Jay, we only have a few more minutes. Let's talk about, where we can find your books. Are you working on a book? What's coming up? How can people get a hold of you?
I know that one, jaywiseman.com.
Your social security number, your bank account number. No, let's.
Yes, all these important questions we want answers.
There you go. Inquiring minds want to know.
Vivant knows the answer.
Vital statistics.
Well, of course, my books are available where books are available. Various websites, brick and
Flea
mortar
markets?
stores.
Pawn
Sometimes.
shop.
Is your stuff available on Amazon.com now?
Oh yeah, has been for quite some time.
Is any of your books audio?
I don't think so.
I could do that for you.
Really?
Yes, you could.
You have to pay me, but that's a long game.
Let's talk about that because we get requests for them. They're available in ebooks form now, most of them.
Nice.
And according to Jay Wiseman, you have to do this. Then they'll have an orgasm while they're reading. Guess 718, which is Miss Carla says, does Jay know Dr. Charles Moser and Dr. Peggy? Help me, Jay.
Kleinplatz.
Kleinplatz.
I know both of them. I've known Charles since the 70s, and I've met Dr. Kleinplatz a time or two. She's a very wonderful person. person, does excellent work in the field.
Nice.
Kind of cute too.
Slut.
Well.
Dang.
She seems to see sluts a lot.
Yeah, instead of I see dead people, I see sluts.
There may be something to those glasses. They may have a unique magical quality that
Well,
we're
they
not
don't have
aware
glasses.
of.
No, I just gotta get laid.
That's what it is.
Exactly.
She's going to continue
Yeah,
seeing sluts
Charles
until
actually-
she becomes one and feels better.
Charles actually does more expert witness work than I do.
Really?
Oh, so these are people that are in the field of expert.
Yes, yeah. Charles is an MD, PhD, and Peggy is a PhD. But yeah, he does a lot of work in like child custody cases and stuff like that.
Did you know I'm an MAP?
I'm going to put down my glass, and that would be
I can't say it on there. My name.
okay.
Never mind.
Okay.
I no, because then they would know my real name, and then they
Yes.
would stalk me.
Yes, they might.
You know, and then my daughter will have a shit fed.
That could happen.
It could happen. So, how can people get a hold of your? They can buy your books at Amazon.
Amazon. What I recommend, vendor. Okay, this is a button of mine. I love Amazon. Amazon is a tremendous resource, but there's online stores and there's brick and mortar stores. And I recommend that people actually spread their book purchasing out a little bit. I mean, yes, give some of your business to Amazon, but give some of your business to a local independent bookstore. Give some of it to a Barnes and Noble, to a chain store. There are community websites that sell my book. So spread the love a little.
I think there's a better way.
Okay.
If Jay Wiseman comes to your community, in your home, in your city, make sure you go and see one of his, or go to one of his classes, because he always has his books with him.
That's true. And safety scissors, too.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Mistress Carlos says, then Jay must know who I am since I've known Charlie since 1984.
84.
Yeah. That's, you see it?
Ah,
Yeah. No, the spark.
oh.
Hey,
Send me a message on FetLife. So you can get-
you're going to have to go visit her in Florida
I
and
would love
teach your
to.
classes.
Where's she at in Florida?
Where was she in? Where? I forgot. There's so many cities.
In the state of?
There's so many cities.
Because
So many
I've been
cities.
to Miami, I've been to Tampa, and Jacksonville.
We're like
It's
two
gotten hot,
we're
baby.
like two airheads right now. It's the heat.
Mhm.
No,
Need some more water.
I would suggest that, you know, if he is coming to your city and he's teaching, you know, are you going to downtown Georgia?
No, not this time.
Not this time, but he does come down. You know, he does DomCom here in Los Angeles, and he does travel all across the country. Please go, and it's really worthwhile to go to one of his classes.
Absolutely.
I'll be appearing at Dark Odyssey in San Francisco in November.
When did all of these things pop up? All these different conventions and these. I mean, never as like there. Do you remember a time when there wasn't? When there were only a couple places?
There were far fewer of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember the first time I ever got invited out of town to present at a conference. It was up in Portland, Oregon. And, I was talking to a very well-known singer. I said, "I'm so honored. They invited little old me to come and speak." You know, the person said, "Now, pretty soon you're going to want to get paid."
People don't invite me because they think I want to get paid. But I've been, somebody suggested, they wrote me, I'm not going to tell you what event it is because I haven't heard back from them. They had an idea, they wanted me to teach about how to stream my TV shows in BDSM. And I said, sure. So I sent them the whole information about it. And they haven't written me back or anything yet. So I don't know if they still want me to. Oh, Deerfield Beach. That's where she lives.
Okay.
Yeah, so she lives in Deerfield. And they have a great community there. She's been in the life choice, I like to call it, for a very, very long time. And it is really bloody hot. And I can't see, what time is it?
9:59, according to
Oh,
that.
yes.
Wow. Any regrets? I ask you that all the time.
Oh, too many to count.
Oh. Yes, but would you change any of it?
A few.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there are a few things if I had to do over on them, I would definitely do them differently.
That's pretty transparent and honest. That's
Yeah.
great.
Notice I was surprisingly non-specific.
Yeah, but still, and
Non-specific transparency, I can do that.
this is going on YouTube, and it's on Google Plus, and it's on FetLife, but it's also, we post it all over the place. Any advice that you want to give somebody, because this is a question I like to end things with, someone that's new, that's coming into our staff.
Probably, if I could only give them one bit of advice, it would be this. Get your information from a variety of sources. Don't rely on like one. There are a lot of people out there with a lot of clock hours of successful BDSM play, and despite the fact that we tend to be argumentative, there's actually pretty major. There's pretty good. Most of the major points are agreed upon.
Yes.
And so if this person says something and this person hears it, if you can get 3 or 4 points of information, they should probably agree on most things. So if you've got someone who's, wildly different, find out why. But yeah, get your information from multiple sources. That would be the one. If I had to take one piece of advice, it would be that.
What about you? And Cassie? Is Cassie?
Well, I also have a similar philosophy. It's like, in my class, I go over a little bit of safety, but I also encourage them to do their own research. I encourage them to look at your books. I encourage, they go, well, is there one particular book on bondage I should get? I'm already doing the one by the Naughty Boys. I said, well, that's very nice. I have a few people that I like to do, that I like to use their particular resources, but I don't limit people. Rather than sit there and rattle off a list of people I think you should have, I encourage them to email me. I find out what specifically they're looking for and try to get them the best resource for that, or at least send them to, I happen to know a couple of good resource groups where they can look at their own resources, and people want to know specific things. Some people are more interested in anatomy, issues. Some people are interested in this. And there just isn't one great resource for it all. So I'm always a great, I'm like, educate yourself, and there's always another resource.
Is it Naughty Boys a rap group? No, just joking. Just joking. Just joking.
But, essentially they learned how to do rope work. And they, for whatever reason, hit it big, and then went back and studied. Or at least so the urban legend goes.
Yeah, education.
But they took responsibility.
Yeah.
They saw they were gaining a following, so they went and learned how to do some things properly.
Yeah. Take your time. Do not rush into it.
Mm-hmm.
Go to classes. I was going to the Libertad for a year without ever playing, without doing anything, because I needed to learn. So I learned how to flog, I learned how to paddle, I learned how to communicate, I learned all the education will save your life and will save the submissive or the bottom that you play with. Will save their life. It's very important to pay attention and not to let this go to your ego. This is not about ego, because you could hurt somebody. Know your toys. Know how to use them. Educate yourself. And take your time. Take your time. It's going to be here 5 or 6 years from now, 10 years from now. You don't have to rush into anything.
No, you don't. I had one young man go, he says, I am definitely a dom, but why do I need to take classes? I already know I'm a dom. I said, well, that's great that you know yourself, but these, certain skills do require education. At least learn how to do it properly. And quite frankly, I recommend that you bottom at least once or twice for every skill you want to learn, so you know how it feels.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Know where subspace is, know where down drop is, know where sub drop is, know all of these things before you play. Because you could really harm somebody, and it's really important. As we've learned from, I think it was Guy Baldwin, I will hurt you, but I will never harm you. Or was that you?
That wasn't me.
It was Guy Baldwin. Okay.
He has a new essay out, by the way.
Oh, another one?
Yeah. I think it's a transcript of a talk he gave. I posted in my FetLife group and on my Facebook.
Recent one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like him. when I interviewed him, I was terrified. I mean, this is really honest. I was terrified of interviewing him. Absolutely terrified, because he has this commanding, presence, and I was I was just terrified. And as we got into the conversation, I mean, he's a very dynamic, bright, intelligent, and very compassionate person. And he just, I mean, I adore him. And he said to me, no, I'm not even going to get into that conversation. I guess we're done.
Yeah,
But
it's time to wrap it up.
It's time to wrap it up. Got to do a rap song. Mama said, no, just joking.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jay. I
Great-
love
great
having
being
you on.
Great being there with you.
It was fun talking to you as well. I thought this was a fun couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hot.
Yes, it's very
Hottest
hot.
show I've ever done.
I know. We're just, why. Hey, Jay, the only reason you're hot is because you're sitting in between the two of us.
There it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So I want to thank everybody for watching TSR Network. We are going to be off for a month, the whole month of October. This was a very, very special event. That's why Miss Cassie and I have co-hosted this, and we appreciate the people that continually to watch the shows and that share the videos with other people. It's really amazing. We've had over 100 and some thousand people watch the shows since we relaunched in February, which is awesome. We're hitting so many different people at so many different levels of BDSM and into the vanilla world because of how we're doing it now, because we are about education and safety. And a couple of announcements. Like I said, we're going to be off for a month. So we're not closing down, just for a month until I can get my daughter married and move on with my life. And another thing I want to tell you about, that I'm going to be on Playboy Radio at 12 o'clock on Friday. So it was on Dr. Lamore, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. We are going to be talking about the real 50 Shades of Grey, and about the community, about predators, all sorts of things about BDSM, and about male submissives and how they feel, and that it's okay to be a male submissive, because there's going to be many, many men watching it on Playboy Radio. We're going to be talking about fantasy and the reality part of BDSM. But I want to thank you all for watching the show. I want to thank my wonderful guest. I was going to say Guy Baldwin. That was hysterical. Whoa! Don't have more coffee. Jay Wiseman, and I would love for you to come back as much as you want. Miss Cassie, thank you so much for co-hosting this with me.
Oh,
for the people that are in the live audience, for the gentleman that's been handling my board, he's going to be signing us off in a couple of seconds. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful show. And for the people that are in the chat room, thank you so much for your comments and your questions. And it's a pleasure having you guys watch the shows, and some people watch it weekly, every day. And if you can't catch the live show, you can always catch the recorded shows on the archive on TSR Network. And for all the people that have not come into the chat room that are watching the show, I want to thank you all for coming into, we could call this our home, coming into our home and sharing our experience with us. We are changing the world one vanilla at a time. Thank you so much, and rest in peace. No, that's terrible. Oh my God. More coffee. No, I don't need it.
Well, anyways, Naughty or Nice with Miss Cassie. Next live show is going to be Tuesday, November 4th, Election Day.
Oh, and mine's November 3rd, not Election Day. That's
but Cassie's birthday.
Is that your birthday?
Yes, November 3rd.
Oh, and my birthday is yours. Oh, yeah, whatever.
Are you November 4th?
No, you're November 3rd. My show's November 3rd.
Yes.
So I have to say happy birthday to you on my
should.
show. Can I do my Marilyn?
Of course. Happy birthday. And I'm going to be double nickels.
You're going to be double fisted? Is that what you said?
Double nickels.
Double nickels?
I'm going to be 55.
Oh. And you didn't think you'd make it past 30.
I know.
Thank you, everybody, for watching TSR Network and the special show with Jay Wiseman. And make sure you get his book, S&M 101, and the new books that he's going to be coming out with. So look him up at jaywiseman.com, or go to his FetLife group, jaywiseman.com. And I want to thank you all for watching. Love you guys. See you guys in a month. Bye-bye.
Yes, good night.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yes, you can click it.